today. Welcome in. This is my Thursday morning walk and talk seller chat. If you are here looking for fabric, I'm not selling fabric today. I'm selling information. It's free. Free information, free help for sellers. If you're a seller or want to be a seller or thinking about being a seller, stick around and please answer the poll question I have in there. Tell me in chat what your biggest challenge is on Whatnot right now. And so far, one person has no challenges. Aren't you lucky? You are so lucky. So yeah, tell us what your challenges are. Write it in the chat, answer putting it in, and then put it in chat for us so that we can talk about it. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. I did not have this show on Tuesday like I normally do. Sorry about that. My son was visiting from out of town, and I tried to maximize my time spent with him. So I did not do my seller chat Thursday morning or Tuesday morning. Sorry. So, welcome everybody. Please read the show notes. Make sure you have a screenshot if you are new and have not screenshotted all the starred bullets in my show notes before. Please take a screenshot of those and look through them and make sure that you are utilizing all of the resources that Whatnot puts out there for sellers to get help. Make sure you're using those official resources. All right, so Lake Dad says, so I am a new seller. I have done 2 shows. Let me set max shipping to $9.21, but someone told me that it won't stay because I am new. When did you join? And like when did you get approved to sell? It is possible, but if it was there for you from the get-go, I would think it would stay. So it's possible if you signed up to sell but then delayed, actually doing shows for a few months that you got it when you initially joined before they nixed it for new sellers. So I think it should be okay if you have it. So just don't say anything. So yeah, for sure don't say anything to them. Patricia says, not finding continuous fabric by the yard and having to buy half yards, which I refuse to buy. So most sellers that sell half yards will still sell you a yard. You just have to ask, or you bid twice to get a full yard. It just depends on how they're selling it. And I know that's frustrating, but the reason that a lot of sellers do that, just an FYI, is because we actually get more for a half yard. If we sell it by the yard, we get less for a larger piece of fabric. And it's very frustrating for sellers because people will bid up a half yard, but they won't bid up a full yard. I don't know. Am I right? Everybody that's a seller? It does cost more for you, but if you're having to bid on half yards that people are bidding up. And that's why in my shows, if I have it on the bolt, I tell people just ask and I will run a yard for you at double the price that my half yards start at. But inevitably, I will still have half yards get bid up and I won't have yards get bid up, and it's the same dang price. So, yeah. It's very frustrating. So, yeah, if everybody who buys fabric wants yards, then we could all do lower prices if people bid them up. And the other problem is the larger sellers, most of them are doing dollar starts, and it gets bid up way more than you should be paying for a yard of fabric in a lot of cases. So I don't know. It's part of the auction style. Another way to shop is to go to some of the sellers like me, like Cheap Girl Fabrics that do the flash sales out of the Buy It Now, it's by the half yard, but you can check out with 2 units, which is a full yard, and get the same price. So, yeah. And there are bigger sellers who are selling by the yard. It's just that, you have to bid against a lot of other people to get that yard of fabric. So if you come to my shows, I have it on the bolt. And if I'm selling it by the half yard, just ask and I will run it for you as a yard. Yeah, all day long. Just ask. But I do have to, and I've been thinking about switching to yards, but every time I try, I I don't make my money that I need per yard. It depends because I'm sourcing new, and if it's a brand new line, I actually am required by the manufacturer to run it at MSRP, which in most cases MSRP is around $12 and around between $12 and $13 a yard is MSRP. So I'm required to run it at that. So I usually start my half yards at 6. But if you go to a quilt shop today, most quilt shops have their yards at 14 on new fabrics, on new lines. On lines that have been out for longer, I can, reduce the price. And my estate finds, I definitely sell, for less. So it just depends. So yeah. All right, let me continue with some more comments here that I got. Let's see. FOMO says, I have items that won't fit in the regular couple boxes that USPS white ones. Do I take my item to the post office and ask for their assistance? No. So you just need to use, you need to have your shipping settings set so that, you don't necessarily have to use the flat rate boxes. Because if you're selling items that won't fit in flat rate on a regular basis, then you probably shouldn't be using the flat rate settings. So use this guide that's in my auction tab. Let me find it for you to kind of give you an idea, and then go watch shipping videos. Here's the thing. Your shipping settings depend on 2 things. First of all, what you sell. And then second of all, how much you sell. So first, what you sell. Does what you sell 95% or higher, or, around 90% or higher, fit in flat rate packaging? The answer is yes. Then do flat rate packaging all day long, every day. It makes sense. If what you sell doesn't regularly fit in flat rate packaging, then don't use the flat rate settings, because it's going to kill you trying to fit, something. It's like, a square thing doesn't fit in a round box kind of deal, right? So don't kill yourself with that. Use the settings where you can use your own packaging, or you can use the priority boxes from the post office that are bigger and more variety of sizes. So, look at it that way and figure it out based on that. The post office is not going to help you, because you have to use Whatnot's system and Whatnot's labels to fulfill your packaging. So you've got to learn how it works. Here's another really good cheat sheet that will help you with figuring out post office. So the things that I've pinned, they're just in the auction tab. Go find them, click the picture, click it again, make it big so that you can take a screenshot. So this little chart is that Blaze and Bunny put together, is a visual aid. It shows you the different types of packaging labels and boxes and what will work with what and what won't work with what. So you can just look at that and go, okay, my label is ground advantage, and then go across. Can I use poly mailer or bubble mailer? Yes. Can I use my own box? Yes. Can I use a priority mail box? No. Can I use a flat rate box? No. Okay. So, just use that and use that other thing to kind of get it figured out. Okay. Yeah. Ground advantage is the way to go on your packaging if you have awkward size stuff or you sell lots and lots of stuff. Okay. Crazy fabric ladies, what has been your situation where packages are returned and you've tried to reach out to the buyer, but they have private messages off and then they rebuy? If they're a really good customer, if they're buying a lot, then you obviously don't want to block them. But if they're just every once in a while buying and it keeps getting returned and they aren't responding, I honestly would block them, because who wants to deal with that? There are some scammers out there that are buying low cost items. They're stealing credit card numbers, buying low cost items to see if it goes through, and then they go to town on that credit card. So you might get some that get returned where it says, address not known, or this person is not at this address. And then you'll go in and look and their account has been removed. So you do nothing. You got, sadly, you got a sale off of a fraudulent credit card charge. So, yeah, that happens occasionally. But yeah, if they're not, and you can also reach out to customer service about the order and, ask them to message the customer and stay on the same email thread when you message. And maybe they can get a hold of the customer, who will then be told they need to respond to you. So, yeah, because that's kind of weird, right? Let's see. Yes, and field trip quilting is confirming what I said about half yards and yards. It's kind of the auction mentality. People will take a lower cost start. So if you're starting your half yards at a lower cost, people will bid that and bid higher than a higher dollar start. If you're having to start a yard at a higher dollar, it's the dollar amount start, and which is the same mentality as why the people who are doing dollar starts on anything will get more bids. And if you can afford to do a model where you can start out doing dollar starts, you'll lose your shorts until you get a big enough audience. But even then, sometimes your first couple of shows will do really well, but then it will drop off a little bit. But if you can sustain it, it's not a bad business model to do if you can afford to do it, because it's all about the auction mentality of the excitement of a low start and the possibility of getting a really good deal. But you all know that in bigger seller shows where they have a big enough audience, it's rarely to never going to actually sell for less than, or for a dollar, or, a two or three. Sometimes it will, but not very often. So, yeah. All right, let's see. Patricia says, I sew a lot in half yards, just don't cut it for me. Yeah, I get it. 100%. I get it. So, you know, be vigilant about who you buy from and who's willing to sell you a yard of fabric. And I think most sellers are reasonable and will, if you just ask. Just say, I don't do half yards. Can you sell me a full yard at once? And they will, but be willing to pay a reasonable price on new fabric, especially. I was selling brand new fabric the other day off the bolt. It's a brand new line, and it released literally, I got the release last week. And I had someone in chat ask me if they would sell it to them for $4. I legally cannot do that. I'm buying brand new fabric wholesale. I have to meet the wholesaler's requirements, just like a quilt shop. Can I give you a better deal than a brick and mortar store? Yes, because I don't have the overhead that they have. But so some of these sellers that are selling brand new line fabric, they're buying direct from manufacturer. If they're not selling it at the MSRP when it's a new line out, they're actually breaking their terms of service with their contract with that wholesaler. Now, you do have some sellers who are buying it through third party sources, and they aren't obligated by that, but the person they bought it from is. So, there's some things out there that are kind of fishy. I try to be honest in all my dealings. So that's kind of, it is what it is. Flower says, I do half yards, not full, because I do bowl cozies and don't need that many cozies in one fabric. Yeah. Patricia says she has found some. Let's see. Field Trip says most of my people get 2 to 6 half yards, and then I just cut them. Yeah, exactly. That's what I do too. So in my shows, if you just buy multiple half yards, it's always continuous yardage up to however many halves you bought. Same thing. And that's what most of us do. Yeah. So again, my yards depend on my original cost of goods. I try to give you the best price I can, but like I said, if I'm buying brand new wholesale bolts, then I have to price it accordingly. So let's see. I'm not sure what that comment was. Turn off flat rate so customer will know rate will be different. Let's see. I'm a seller too and need to make my profit. Nothing against you. Yeah. Yeah. And I get that too. So if you're selling, here's the other thing. If you're a seller on Whatnot and you're sourcing on Whatnot, you're paying too much. You're paying way too much. Unless you're sourcing it smart, where you're getting, you have someone who's selling, you sell on Etsy. So that's different, because you can come on to someone who's selling in bulk and get some pretty good deals that you can flip on another platform. Or you're buying it to make the things that you sell, so I get that. Um, you know, but maybe consider, how you source your new fabric, because it has to make sense for your cost of goods. So if you're sourcing on here to resell, or you're sourcing for the stuff that you make sure it makes sense, because maybe, you have to decide where your best sources are for your costs. So, and I think, when you're making things that you're reselling, it also depends on the demand for certain prints and certain types of fabric, because you build that into what you're selling. Because if there's a demand and they want the stuff made out of the newer lines of fabric, you've got to build that into your cost, because you're going to have to pay, higher for that fabric because it's a newer line versus buying, older prints or older fabric from estates or things like that you can pick up for a lot less. So you just have to really be smart about your costs. And as a general rule, when you're selling the actual fabric or selling the actual base item, you need to be at least double your cost to really make any profit after all of your expenses and commissions and all of that. So, yeah, you just have to really, and then when you're buying to make, you've got to build that into the cost of what you make. So, all right, let's see. Oh, that's awesome, Patricia. Yeah, quilts should be selling for that much money or more, considering how much you put into them. But not everybody appreciates a handmade item. So you definitely have to have the right audience that appreciates what you make and the time that you put in and the materials, how much the materials cost, et cetera, et cetera. So congrats, that's awesome. Very cool. Let's see. Pretty Pieces says, I heard a seller say Whatnot makes you use priority mail. Well, they make you use the postal service, but they don't make you use, they everything under a pound goes Ground Advantage. That's automated. Everything that is a pound to 5 pounds either goes priority or priority flat rate, because they obviously have negotiated that rate for a reason. They want their customers, to have the best experience with how fast they get their items. And so, 1 to 5 pounds go priority or priority flat rate. And then over 5 pounds can either go priority, priority flat rate, or Ground Advantage. Okay, so yeah, because we do our fulfillment through the Postal Service, because Whatnot has a third party contract through Shippo, through the Postal Service, and everything right now is that way. They have said that one of their goals is to add additional shipping providers, but that's not available yet. So I know they're looking into trying to get, either UPS, FedEx, both. I don't know, but it's just not there right now. Let's see. Timber says, why do they do that? I send 6 pounds of fabric Ground Advantage all the time with Etsy. Well, because with Whatnot, I can send 6 pounds of fabric in a large flat rate box for $9.21. How much is that Ground Advantage on Etsy for 6 pounds? So, I mean, because I can fit about 25. Let me think how many I can fit. If I have someone buy about 25 items in a show, so that's, somewhere between, let's see, about 10 to 20 yards of fabric, I can fit that much in a large flat rate box. So, yeah. So Pinup says, I sell leftover fabric from a quilting club. They then use the money made to donate to charity, but do not want recognition for it. Should I bother mentioning that in the show, or just no? I think you totally should mention that. I think that's awesome. Yeah, totally. You should tell about that. I mean, don't lean on it so heavy that everyone's just like, you're just trying to, get pity sales or something, but absolutely tell about the things that you do for good. Mention it in your profile, talk about, different things. When you have certain types of fabric, you can maybe mention the project it was used for. You can even show the pictures. People love that. Yeah. So be honest, stay humble, don't brag it up to the point that people are like, oh my gosh, you're just trying to get, what I'm saying, be genuine, be honest, be forthright about what you're doing. But people love the story. People love the backstory. We all love the backstory. When I sell estates, I share about the person whose estate it came from. Why wouldn't you? You know, you're honoring that person who spent all that time collecting this beautiful fabric and making these beautiful items. And you should definitely be honoring them by telling about who they were and what they did without, of course, any specifics. But if you have details, share them. Everybody loves the story, the backstory. Yeah. All right. So last night I saw a new scam. They bid up a cheap item to $400. We were all watching and it was candy. Yeah, that happens. People, there's bugs out, there's, just jerks out there who have no intention of actually buying the item. They cancel it immediately. They're just trying to totally jerk someone's show off kilter. So it happens. It's been happening since I've been on Whatnot. So yeah, I mean, and every once in a while, it's legit. You'll have some big wig who likes to throw money around do that, and it's legit, and they actually will pay for it. I don't ever know what their agenda is, but I've seen that happen too. So yeah. All right, let me keep catching up. So Patricia said, sorry, I was looking if you had a shop that I could look at stuff before you sell. Yeah, so there's, if you go into any of my shows that are scheduled at least, same day, mostly the at least a few days before, I have it preloaded. So any of my quilting fabric shows, there will be some stuff preloaded. So you'll be able to see it. FOMO says, I know people are on here as a living, but I'm just trying to clean out my craft sewing room. And if I can put the money back into my habit, it's a win-win. Yeah. Everybody has a different goal. And that's really important. And it's really important to stay focused on your goal. So if your goal is just, I want to make enough money destashing what I'm not going to use anymore so that I can buy the new stuff I want, hallelujah. But stay focused on that and don't beat yourself up if you're not making, a ton of money. You just need to stay focused on, okay, I made $200 this week. I have $200 to spend on new fabric. I am so happy. See what I mean? Versus, oh, I only made this much money and everybody else is making this much money and woe is me. No, put a goal, write it down, and laser focus on your own goals so that you're not comparing what you're doing to what someone else is doing. That's super important. All right, Crazy Fabric Lady says, I even asked them to reach out via the show. They never messaged me. Now I've got 2 pieces returned sitting here. Yeah. I would just go to that order, get help with the order, reach out to customer service, explain what happened, stay on the same email thread, see if they can reach out to the customer, tell them you're not getting a response. What should I do? And they can handle it. Let's see. So pinup, my first show I did had a lot of viewers, but then when I did a second show, I was literally only talking to myself for so much time. So pinup, your first show was probably promoted because you had an incentive from Whatnot to promote, or you promoted it, and then that helps you get more viewers. And then you are going to have a dip until you start building yourself up and have more shows and or have more consistency and more frequency and more visibility, et cetera, et cetera. So the key is networking. You've got to network like crazy when you're new, to get your name out there. You've got to build up some reviews. You've got to build up some trust, et cetera, et cetera. It takes time. It is not a fast, this is not a fast process, especially, if you are just starting out brand new, fresh, didn't already have a following, didn't bring a following with you, you're just like everybody else who came on and make trying to make a go of it. It takes time. Be patient. So yeah. Patricia says if it's nice and will pay, see the price. Not sure what you meant by that. Restate. Field Drip Quilting says we have contracts for new fabric. We have to honor our contracts. Yes. FOMO says I have started looking for patterns that use half yards. um, Timber says I'm new to this, just checking it out. Regarding what you're saying, if you're selling by half yards and people bought multiple, wouldn't you just, yes, keep it into one piece? Exactly. Let's see. Don says, I was always wondering how these people that have accounts and selling them off the boat could start it for $1. Well, because if you have a big enough following and if things do get bid up, you can afford to do that if you have a big enough audience. But even the bigger sellers, if it's a bad day, they are losing their shorts on some of their pieces, but usually they make enough in a show to offset. But technically, if they bought that fabric brand new from the manufacturer and it's a new line, that's the key. It has to be a new line. Once that line has been, it depends on the manufacturer, but most of them it's about, 3 months or so after it was released, then you're allowed to start discounting it. So you just have to read the rules of what you signed when you're buying wholesale. So, yeah, but technically they should not be doing dollar starts on new lines of fabric. And they could get their account revoked with that manufacturer if they keep doing that. Let's see. Yes, and so pinup, they usually have you promoted for the first show. Crazy Fabric Lady says, I think we're going to try that. We're losing our butts sometimes on whole yards. Yeah. So let's see. I love seeing your wings. Oh, thank you, FOMO. That's exciting. The key now is, can I maintain it? Once you hit premier status, it doesn't stay permanently. You have to continue to make that amount of money to keep your wings. And I'll be honest with you, we are right on the fence. It's just my husband and I. We do this, full time. It's our full time gig. We're in the 55 plus category. There are some days where cutting fabric about kills me. If I do a big show and I've got to sit there and cut fabric for hours, so can I maintain it without having to hire other people? If I have to hire other people to help, then it starts getting into the not worth it. So, it's a fine line, and I actually resisted putting harder work into it to go premiere I've been resisting it for 2 years. Since they introduced premiere, I've been resisting it going, do I really want to put in the extra work? And I decided to just see what happens. And honestly, it was kind of like we just made it happen and skin of our teeth. So we'll see if I can maintain it, because and I'm not going to be so prideful about it that if I can't maintain that, I'm going to be okay with that. Of course I want to try, but I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to neglect my other duties of my life to stay a premier seller. It's not the end all be all. So it makes a big difference. It does help you get a bigger following. It does help you get more notice when you go live and all those good things. But in the long run, I have to be honest and say it's not the end all be all. Lake says, how do you handle another seller messaging your mod, telling her that she is misrepresenting you and that the mod is lying about your reduced shipping? Wow. I mean, if you feel like it's egregious, just block them and be done with it and don't even reach out. If it's someone that does buy from you and you're just kind of like, where's this coming from? Be careful and maybe reach out and ask what's going on. But usually if it's just someone who is being a butthole and there's not anything you're going to be able to say to deflect it, just block them and be done. So, if you feel like something's going on, because maybe your mod has something else going on with them that you don't know about. So yeah. Let's see. I saw leftover fabric from a quilting club. The money is then donated to charity, but the club does not want recognition for the charity. Oh, that we already sort of talked about that, right? So I would say, without saying who they are, you can still talk about the backstory. You know, you don't have to necessarily mention, yeah, who it is. Yes, margins are razor thin in reselling, you guys. So just recognize, those of you who buy but don't necessarily sell on the platform, it's reselling is not for the weak, because you've got to be able to get the very best price you possibly can so that in the back end you're actually making anything. Because the thing that you never know, you may look at a seller and think, oh my gosh, they are loaded. They're doing so well. But what you don't know is how much they've invested in getting their inventory, how much they're paying in storage, in shipping, in all the other costs that going into being a reseller. So don't even give it a second thought. Focus on your margins, on what you're doing, on what your goals are, and don't compare what you're doing to what everybody else is doing, because you just don't know. You literally don't know what other people's margins are. Four Queens has a fabric show that starts at 10 a.m. Can everyone click on Four Queens and bookmark that show for them? Give them a little boost, whether you can go or not. Bookmarking someone's show, recognizing them when you're in a seller chat like this makes a difference. So give them a little bookmark, please. And it looks like they have sold 4.1 thousand items. So they are, sort of new, but not new. So congrats on almost getting to a 5,000 sales. All right, let's see. You don't talk too much, Patricia. You're fine. Let's see. Many people do not appreciate handmade items. That's true. They just don't. They don't know. Why do they do that? I send 6 pounds of fabric with Ground Advantage all the time with Etsy. Yeah, see, Etsy has a different, shipping. And that's the other thing. You also can't compare other platforms and how they do things. Every platform has their own, methods. Like right now, Poshmark is only Ground Advantage. You can't even get something sent priority anymore. They dropped that service. So I'm kind of glad we have priority still, because at least people can get their stuff faster and insured. So I don't know, every platform is the same. And Etsy isn't always the cheapest, and it all depends on how the seller sets their pricing, because the Etsy sellers still, I know I have an Etsy shop. I'm not really active on my Etsy shop right now, but I have had Etsy since 2016. So I know Etsy. It's not, it's just a different platform with a different pricing structure. But the seller still gets to determine how they set their shipping, just like you determine here, and you decide whether you're going to offset some of the shipping costs for the buyer or not. And they still use mostly the Postal Service as well. But every platform has different negotiated rates. And I personally think $9.21 for a huge box of fabric is a really good rate. So if I were to have sold that on Etsy, the customer would have had to pay a lot more. So let's see. So pinup, I sell leftover fabric from quilting. Oh, we already answered that. Yes, it is very hard to sell on Etsy. I had a couple of really good years on there, and then they allowed everybody and their dog to start selling stuff that didn't qualify as handmade. It ruined it, in my opinion. Let's see, any suggestions for more chat engagement? Sometimes it feels like I'm dragging people out of caves to chat. You have to work on that with, having the ability to just start talking. Share about yourself, start engaging people. You don't have to tell the nitty gritty, dirty details of your life. You just start talking about the things you're doing, the things you love, the things you're passionate about, and it will start. People will start. Oh, and it can be simple things like where you grew up, where you live now, things you've done in your life, and people will start making connections. So you just have to be willing to talk about yourself and about what you're doing and things like that. So yeah. Let's see. Yes. So pinup. When you only have one show, there's nothing for people to bookmark for the next show. So make sure you have up to 10 shows scheduled all at the same time. You can always move them by editing the show and changing the date and time if you need to do it, prior to the show, obviously. But have a lot of shows on your schedule. If you look in my auction tab, one of my things that I share is this top 10 tips for new sellers. So tap that, tap it again, make it big, take a screenshot of that. These are the tried and true. When I first started doing seller chats, these are the tried and true advice that I always give out for all these topics. Top 10 tips for sellers. Number one, what's number one? Schedule shows as soon as possible and schedule a lot of shows. That's the main way that you get found because your shows show up on the schedule. And if you don't have any shows scheduled, nobody can find you. You don't exist, hardly at all. So you've got to have a lot of shows on your schedule. Okay. That's my number one tip. Let's see. Even a fat quarter is okay for quilting. Quilting fabric is key. What you make depends on the size of the piece. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Hey, like it swipe, it's in the house. How are you this morning? Patricia says I have free shipping. Let's see. You have free shipping on Etsy. Yeah, so you're building the cost of shipping into the price of your items, which is fine. And you can do that same strategy here. It's just that because Whatnot is a more of an auction platform, it's hard to do because a lower start is a more appealing thing in an auction setting. It's just a whole different mindset. So you have to, really, really decide what is going to work. So yes, on Etsy, agree. I love the platform. I absolutely love the concept of the platform. And then they got a new CEO, and he went bonkers with allowing everybody and their dog to start selling on there. And it honestly, in my opinion, ruined it big time. 4 queens. How do you sell 60 items of fabric to one person and not take a loss on shipping using 921 max? 60 items. Well, you unbundle their order and you use one of your 5 free adjustments that you get per week. And then if you're a big seller, it's just built into your business plan. Ask some of the bigger sellers like Stash how much they spend on shipping per show. They pay about $200 or more in shipping costs every show, but it's built into their model of how they do their business. So, if you can't afford to do that, you limit the amount of items you sell, you watch your stacks. And if you've got a person, because you'll have it, this will happen sometimes. You'll be doing a show and there's like one or two people that are the only people buying anything, that for whatever reason, right? You have to shorten that show. If you know you've used your adjustments and you're going to have to pay a bunch of money to ship their order, you shorten the show. And then maybe you go live the very next day or later that same day, because you had to cut off your show because you only had a couple of people buying everything and it was going to cost you too much to ship it. That's a strategy. It's a real thing, and yeah, it kind of sucks for your buyers if they, wanted to maximize their shipping. But, and you can usually afford to do it at the beginning of the week. You still have adjustments left to do that. Go for it, use some of your adjustments. But there's some packing strategies you can use with fabric. That's one of the beautiful things about selling fabric. You can really pack a lot of fabric into a box. So make sure you learn how to pack correctly. So I'll give you one of my tips, which is you take a large flat rate box. If you have an order that's going to need the largest box and you're doing flat rate, take a large flat rate box, tape it up, and maybe you just use a reused one. Tape it all up, set it on your table upside down, closed, and then you literally fold and pack the fabric to the dimensions of the box and stack it up. And then you put it in a thick enough plastic bag and you suck the air out, and you can fit a heck of a lot of fabric in a large flat rate box. So, that's a strategy. And then if it literally will not fit in the flat rate box, then you unbundle it into two orders and either send it in two large flat rate boxes, or you turn flat rate off and put it in a ground advantage box, larger box, and just send it all together in one box. And you use one of your free adjustments, or you pay part of their shipping. So, you just build it into the cost of doing business. All right. Crazy Fabric Lady says, I've scheduled our standard Tuesday and Thursday night 8 p.m. shows through the end of the year. That's honestly awesome. Because by the end of the year, you will have some shows that just have crazy tons amounts of bookmarks because you had all your shows pre-scheduled. So everybody that loves your shows is going to start bookmarking, and remind people, bookmark my upcoming shows, when you're in there. If you love what we're doing, if you love our shows, make sure you have them bookmarked, and people will. They may not go out as far as the end of the year, but they'll continue to bookmark them as you have shows. Okay. Unbundling. Did I give you enough of that explanation? So, if you need a really more in-depth of how to unbundle, go watch some of the shipping videos on my YouTube account, on Blazing Bunny, De-Archivist, Julie Becker. Mine's going to give you a little bit more, based on what you sell, kind of if you're selling fabric, because everybody's shipping advice is always kind of based around what they sell and what their experience is. So try to take shipping advice from someone who sells what you sell so that it makes sense. Because if you're listening to someone who sells storage units and they're a crazy fast seller, and they sell everything at one flat, or they sell everything they sell at one weight, no matter what it is. That's not going to work for you as a new seller unless you have the business model that you want to hit the road running, and you're willing to take a loss for a couple of months until you can get off the ground. Okay. So you just decide. But yeah, unbundling is just literally going in to the orders. You go all the way to the right to the little pencil, and well, actually, you click the order and it shows you everything they've ordered, and you can click the individual items to unbundle it after you click to unbundle, and then it separates it into two orders. And then the order that you separate first will then appear at the top of your shipping list after you unbundle it. So let's see. Timber Hill, let me look and see what if I missed a question from you. Let's see. Make sure you're putting question marks on anything you want me to respond to, because it's hard for me to necessarily find them again. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. It's a great community, and we all sell different fabric. I go to some shows with more animals being shown. I sell a few animals. See? Oh, yeah, just different types of fabric. Let's see. How do you sign up for raid trains? So you reach out to the people who organize them. So, like for example, like at Swipe, it's here in chat. She organizes a lot of raid trains. So reach out to her and look for an opportunity in one of the ones she's organizing next. And you can tell who organizes them when you look at the thumbnail. It usually says right on the thumbnail who, organizes that raid train. And if it's not right on the thumbnail, it's going to be in the show notes, or one of the mods can tell you who organizes the raid trains. So just reach out, don't be shy. Um, you know, but if you want to be in raid trains, just make sure you're ready, because raid trains are a faster pace show than your normal show where you can just kind of do your own pace. You've got to be able to run a fast paced show and keep up with, having to do a show in a shorter amount of time, because most raid trains are anywhere from 10 minutes to, at the most you usually get on a raid train is an hour. So you've got to be able to do a raid train at the speed to keep up with it and not derail the train. Let's see. If someone buys a lot and it resets another box for them, but the weight is off and orders can be combined, can that be done? Yes, but then your customer paid the shipping for two separate boxes. So technically, they paid extra, and the Whatnot does not refund overcharged shipping. So you need to make sure your shipping settings are set correctly so that people are not being overcharged for shipping. So if that's happening frequently, it means you don't have your shipping settings set correctly for what you sell and what people are, how much people are buying. So really explore that, because it will turn customers off if they are, seeing that happen frequently when they buy from you, that they're having to pay separate shipping every time it hits 5 pounds. That's usually where the trigger is that you have something set for, 5 pounds and over, and you're over estimating the shipping charge per weight per item. So be careful about that. Beth Ann, my husband was in the Army. Instead of folding clothes, they roll it, and you can get more fabric in the flat rate depending on the size. Yeah. Just make sure your customers are cool with that. I mean, rolling fabric is actually a good way to store fabric because it doesn't leave the crease lines, but it does leave fabric really wrinkly. So, it just depends on I actually find it easier folded and flattened and air removed. All right, let me make sure. Let me go back to all. So again, if you want me to see your comments, please put a question mark. Whether it's a question or not, it makes it easier for me to pick it out of chat and respond to it. Wildflower says challenge right now is the time it takes to preload and prep, working to systemize and find ways to be more efficient. Yeah. Keep in mind you can you do need to have a certain number of things pre-listed just so people can see what you have, especially when you're new, but you can do random pulls. So just have some generic listings that are by weight that you run things under. Um, and that way it's, easier to just blow through a certain number of items. But when you're new, I do think it's super important to have some things, a decent amount of things pre-listed that are the exact item so that people have an idea of what kinds of things you're going to sell. I think that really does bring people in and gives you the potential to have pre-bids and, just have people excited about what you're selling. So yeah, have a mix. All right. Let me just go back through chat and see. Explain free adjustments. So Whatnot has gives you as the seller, and I'll tell you where to see it. They give you 5 times per week. It resets on Sunday evening at about 5 or 6 p.m. your time. You get 5 every week. And if you don't use them, they don't roll over. You just get 5 per week, times where if you have to unbundle or change to a different shipping rate, they cover the cost as long as it's within the um, covered adjustment. So if you try to do a really, really large box that is outside of the size, so let me tell you the 2 sizes. If you want to write this down, this is important. Anything that is going to go in a 1 to 5 pound box, the max size that box can be is 12 by 12 by 12. It doesn't have to be a box exactly 12 by 12 by 12. It just means that when you multiply that number out, it equals 1,728 inches, cubic, whatever that is. And that's, so if you have a box that is 11 by 9 by 7, it's still going to work. It's not higher than 1,728 when you times it out. Hey, Vintage Chick is in the house. How are you? So that's your 1 to 5 pound. When you go into Ground Advantage, so this is Ground Advantage, the max size the box can be is 130 inches when you measure the 3, the length, the width, and the height of the box. Anything outside of those is too big and it won't be allowed in your adjustments. So what does that mean? It means you've got to, if you have to unbundle someone's order, maybe it has to go in 2 or 3 smaller boxes versus one huge box. Also, most people don't sell really big items on Whatnot. The way the shipping is set up just doesn't accommodate large items. Larger items are best sold locally, Facebook Marketplace them, yard sell them. I don't know. Don't sell really big items. It's just not usually worth it. Or you build the cost of the shipping into the cost of the item if it's something worth selling, meaning, it's a really highly collectible, highly desired, expensive item. People are paying hundreds of dollars to buy it. They don't care that they have to pay another 100 to get it shipped. See what I'm saying? So, you have to just be smart about that. All right. Crazy Fabric says 27 yards is our record in a large flat rate. That sounds about right. Let's see. When you get paid, does it go to your bank account? When I got my account, I had a seller's hub, but now it just says sell question mark. So probably you didn't have it set up right. So yeah, you have to have set up your account through Stripe. You will have gotten emails when you got approved to sell that had you click the Stripe link to set up your account through Stripe to connect it to your Whatnot account. So you need to go through and check that. Because yeah, you should have that set up. So if you use FOMO, I'm reading, so you use a free adjustment to send one order into two. Yes. So it uses one of your adjustments. Because the one order is the legit first order. The unbundle is one of your adjustments. Oh, and I was going to tell you where to see that. So when you're on the shipping page on your when you're doing your shipping, and you need to use the web version for shipping, just please use the web version. Use a laptop, use a PC, or you can access it through a mobile device, but it's got to be the web version because there's no other way to adjust. You can't, when you're using a mobile device and just printing the labels, you have no way to adjust anything. It just prints the label. That's it. So you've got to use the web version. So you go into your orders on the web version and under Seller Hub shipments, okay? And then you go to the order page and you go all the way to the right. And if you're on a laptop, it's hidden because the screen the whole thing isn't all viewable on a laptop screen. So you've got to scroll all the way to the right on that order. At the end of the order is a little pencil. That's how you click to edit that order. But on the top of that order screen, all the way to the right, is a little thing that says open sidebar. So if you click that little open sidebar, it drops or it pops up this little pop up, and you can scroll down to the bottom and it will show you how many adjustments you've used for that week. So if you haven't used any, it will say 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 2, 3 out of 5, etc. However many you've used. Doll Clothes by Vicki. I have never got emails anywhere, only when you contacted them for me and then they sent me an email. Well, where's that email? So what email did they send that to? So you need to go to that email that they sent you and reply back and ask about setting up Stripe. Can you discuss the reward system? How do you qualify to offer it to your buyers, and how is that different from coupon codes? So the reward system is automated. Once you set it up, you go to Seller Hub Rewards. If you're eligible, it will be there. The eligibility for the rewards is, I always forget. Let's go look. So I'm just going to go out to and ask. So on frequently asked questions, help.whatnot.com is where I'm at. And I'm just going to type in rewards program because I always forget what the eligibility is. Someone knows faster than I can search it. Rewards club. Okay, I understand. Rewards. Let's see. All right, for sellers, how do I get? Okay, eligibility for starting a rewards club. You have to have completed at least 50 orders. You have to have sold $1,000 lifetime revenue and been a seller for at least 30 days with a seller rating of 4.7 or higher. So that's the requirements right there. Okay. So as long as you meet that, it will be available in your Seller Hub. You just go into the that rewards thing on your Seller Hub, and you literally just set it up. It's important to look at the analytics. So when you're setting it up over to the right side of your screen, it will show you some analytics. It will show you approximately how much your average customer buys, how much they spend per order, how many orders you have, and it kind of helps guide you as to what you should set up. And here's my advice. Lower limits, lower reward, more frequent, because you want people to have an incentive to buy more. And so if you put the limits low enough that most people can achieve your levels, then they get coupons more often. And it can be just, and I would recommend just like $1 off, every time, and just have it set so that they don't have to spend too much money to get it, but enough that it incentivizes them to keep buying. Okay. Yeah, Doll Clothes by Vicky, you're gonna have to keep emailing on that same thread that you got that original email on. So respond back and, ask about setting it up. Because if your Seller Hub disappeared, then I'm guessing you logged in under a different account. So I'm not sure what to tell you on that. Because it's all got to be under the same account, same login that you got approved to sell in, and you've got to stay on the same email thread. And make sure you're writing down somewhere or put it in the notes on your phone what your login is, so that if you somehow mess that up, you've got it written down somewhere. Because I know a lot of sellers have gotten kicked out of their accounts on a mobile device, tried to log in on another device, and then it treats it like a fraudulent, like someone's trying to hack your account, and it locks you out. So please make sure you know your password, your username and your password. Have it somewhere safe so that you can log in safely if something had, got you logged out. You are welcome. Hey, Prism House. Field Trip says I use one password to save all my passwords. It's encrypted and safe. Yeah, exactly. Use some kind of password. Even the one, if you use iPhone, even the one that's on iPhone, just keeps it all safe in one spot. And you can retrieve it by going into your passwords. So use somewhere to store all your passwords so that you don't lose them and get yourself locked out. So the coupon codes are different, and those you set up in Seller Hub under marketing. So there's a drop down menu, Seller Hub marketing, drop it down, and there's just two things there. One of them is coupons, and coupon codes are a one-time use per show or however many shows you have it assigned to. When you set up a coupon, you have to assign it to all the shows you want it to be usable in. So it's kind of a little bit of a, in my opinion, POA, because you have to go in and say, okay, this coupon code, you set it up, and then you got to go mark all the shows that coming out in the future that you want it to be available for. The good thing about it is once you've used it, if you don't want it to be used again, you just don't assign it to any more shows and it won't be usable. And it is a one-time use. So when you create a code for, like, say you will have a code that you're using for a special occasion, you've got to, advertise it like in the show notes or tell people verbally that you have a coupon they can use. And then once they've used it, they can't ever use that code again. It's a one-time use per person. And then again, per show that you've assigned it to. So you can have like a new buyer coupon that you can set up. And that's not a bad idea, to have a new buyer coupon code that you put in your show notes that encourages new buyers. And then once they've used it, they're no longer a new buyer, so they can't use it again. But you can continue to use that same code just by assigning it to continuous future shows. Yeah. So, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Just go into that screen. It walks you through setting it up, and just make sure you have all the settings set up correctly. And just a reminder, coupons cannot be a giveaway. You cannot do giveaways where you're giving away a coupon code. A giveaway has to be an item that you're actually fulfilling. It can't require a purchase. A coupon code can't be redeemed unless you buy something, right? So a coupon is not an eligible giveaway. So don't give away coupon codes. That is against terms of service. You can use coupon codes for people to, use in a future purchase, sending it in their package, but it can't be the giveaway. Okay. Because you just have to always remember that a giveaway has to be no purchase required. Period. That's legal federal law, sweepstakes rules. You can't have a requirement for purchase in a giveaway. So make sure you're following that rule. All right. I'm going to end the poll just so it gets out of the way on the screen. Thanks for everyone for participating. If you still want to participate, put in chat what your biggest challenge is on Whatnot. Share with us, what your challenges are, but I'm going to end that poll so that it's out of the way. All right. And did you guys see how to set up a poll if you want to use a poll? So in this show, if I wanted to do another poll, you just hit the three dots, and then one of your items in that menu is create a poll. You just click that and you can create a poll. You can set it up before you start your show. You can actually do it during the show too. Lake Dad says, if you're selling primarily estate thrifted personal collection fabric, what is a good average order amount? Like what people, I'm not sure what you're asking. So are you asking what you should price it at, or what's a good average that people are spending? So reword that so I know what you mean. So what Jen is getting the courage and confidence to just start. Yeah, it takes courage, but honestly, my best advice is get out of your own head and just do it. Literally just let your mind go blank and just start doing it, because everybody overthinks it, and then you delay and you're continuing to delay the amount of opportunity that you have, because every day you wait, someone else is going on instead of you. So just get out of your head and do it. That's my best advice. So yeah. So everybody make sure you're following So What Jen. She needs more encouragement. Follow her. She's already got shows scheduled here. So, obviously you're thinking about it a little bit more seriously than just thinking about it. So can everyone go in and bookmark So What Jen's upcoming shows? She's got, so far, I've bookmarked 6 shows, and of course my finger kicked me out. So, oh, you finally scheduled them last night. Well, awesome. So now everybody go in and bookmark them for her. So she's got a little boost there of, okay, I'm legit. I've got to have these shows because people bother to go in and bookmark. And I love that you have a ton scheduled. So yeah, that's awesome. So Jennifer, So What Jen, everybody bookmark, follow and bookmark her upcoming shows. Yeah. FOMO says I'm stuck in my head for sure. I think we all are. It's just human nature. Take a deep breath, empty your mind, and just go live. Just start doing it. That's how you learn it. That's how you learn how fun this is, how fun it can be. Life gets in the way for sure, you know, but, and honestly, that's one of my biggest advice that I can give is if you're not having fun doing this, then something's wrong with how you're doing it. You're selling the wrong things, you're overthinking it, you're, you're not just enjoying the process. It really does need to be fun. Because a lot of how this platform works is all about the social aspect of it. And people don't want to stick around in your shows if they can tell you're not enjoying it. So maybe the reason that you're not being successful is that you're not enjoying the process. And honestly, if you can't, get out of your head and make it, a more enjoyable process, maybe this type of selling isn't for you. It's not for everybody. It really isn't for everybody. So figure out what you can do to make it an enjoyable process. And if you just can't, then that's, okay, do something different. But that, because it's a social platform, it's all about the entertainment and social aspect of it as just as much or more as it is about selling. So, yeah, your son told me to stop buying and start selling. Yeah, keeping you in check. Yeah, a lot of people are that way, right? Okay. So, and I mean, and really, so what, that's the thing. He sees that you're enjoying being on the app and he's like, okay, so you're over enjoying it a little bit too much. You've got to sell yourself. Well, think of it from that mindset of, you're just going to join in the party. You're going to contribute instead of just consuming, right? You're going to go on, have fun, and be part of that process. So Lake says, my wife and I do it together and are having so much fun. We love to get items from estate and thrifting fabric communities top notch. Exactly. It is. It's just a blast, you know? And that's the other thing too, is, there's certain levels that make it more stressful. So like, the fact that we became a premier shop, it could put some extra pressure on me and I have to go, okay, do I want to try to achieve that? And if I can't, just because we're putting in too much work and it's not making it fun anymore, I may be like, that's okay, because I want to enjoy the process, and enjoy what we're doing just as much as I want to still have it provide my income. I think that's huge. If you're not enjoying this, selling on this app, go sell somewhere where you just list items and they sell. You know, it's got to be something that you enjoy. So, yeah. You're just selling so you can buy stuff, not a full-time job. See, and that's perfect. So stay focused on that goal and don't get caught up in we're not this, all this, and a bag of chips, because your goal is different than someone else's goal, right? Could you show how to have orders been, okay, you have to restate that. I'm not sure. Been are mine on, oh, how they bundle, how to have your orders bundle. Is that what you're asking? Okay, so that just means that you have your shipping settings set for 1 to 5 pounds. If you sell fabric and you want to be able to have everything bundle into one order, then you need to do 1 to 5 pounds flat rate and 5 pounds and over flat rate, and then it will always just bundle it no matter how much they buy. But make sure that you're selling the items you sell at the most accurate possible weight so that it's not, that it doesn't hit that 921 1 pound until it should. Okay. But that's the best way, in my opinion, for fabric sellers, because it gets you the best, bang for your buck, and it gets the buyers the best bang for their buck. And then, if you're not selling tons and tons and tons, rarely do you exceed your adjustments. And then if you're selling tons and tons, who cares? You help pay part of their shipping because you're selling enough to offset that cost. You order the flat rate boxes from the post office. Most post offices also have them in the lobby, the basic ones. The poly bubble mailers that are the flat rate bubble mailers, those you have to order. So you go online, USPS.com, set up an account. You create an account and then you order the free shipping supplies. And if you're wanting to do flat rate, you order the flat rate boxes. Make sure you know the difference between regular priority and priority flat rate. There's a difference. The box has to say flat rate on the box to be a flat rate box. There are boxes that are priority that look the same, but they don't say flat rate. So make sure you know the difference. But yeah, the regular 3 sizes, the 2 different mediums and the large and the small are usually available in all post office lobbies. You can just go in when they're open and they have a display and you can take them for free. But if you want the bubble mailers, and if you don't want to have to keep going to the post office to get them, you just set up an account and you select free delivery. They deliver it to your house, ground advantage rate. So it does take, about a week to 2 weeks to get the boxes. And in the meantime, go and get some at the post office. All right. But yeah, make sure you know the difference between all the box sizes. And again, I'll pin this little chart that really helps people. Just tap that picture I just pinned, tap it again, take a screenshot of this little chart, because it will help you understand what packaging you can use with what services. So if you have a ground advantage label, what boxes or packages can you use? If you have a priority, what ones can you use? If you have flat mail, flat rate, what can you use? So have that, a screenshot of that. It'll help you understand it a little better. Let's see. By the way, I'm so impressed that you can talk so much while walking the whole time. It doesn't even sound like you're working out. Well, I don't walk super fast. I do walk just regular pace because slow walking actually burns more fat than fast walking or running. But yeah, so that's what I do. I've been walking on a treadmill for, gosh, I can't even remember how long, since my kids were little, and my oldest is 30. Because I don't like to go out on my own. I'm not a gym rat. I hate gyms. They're disgusting and germy. My husband loves to go to the gym. I hate it. So I walk on my treadmill. So, and I do other stuff too, but yeah. All right. I actually do need to get going here. If you find these shows helpful, just go into my gyms are gross. Ugh, people sweating all over machines, and then even though they sort of wipe them down, but no, it's just not me. So it's okay if you're a gym rat. Kudos to you. I love it. All right, so these shows are the ones you want to bookmark. So they're just every Tuesday and Thursday. Every once in a while, I skip a day if I have something going on, but those are the shows you want to bookmark. And then coming up on the 15th, this show is our community support seller chat, where we are doing a specific topic. And the topic this month is how to market yourself on social media. I'm not the queen of social media, but social media does make a huge difference. So we're going to just talk a lot about tips and tricks of what you can do on social media, which you should be using social media to promote your shows, promote yourself, get people on the app. So we're going to talk a lot about that, share some ideas. Is it true you can't do a buy it now show? You can do a buy it now show. You just can't be a silent show where you're not there. It's against terms of service to have a live stream, go live, but you don't interact. You can have a show that's a buy it now show where you never go live and you just let people shop out of your platform. That's fine. You just can't go live and be silent and expect people to buy out of your buy it now. That's against terms of service. It's called a dead stream and it's not allowed. Yeah. Yep. That's how. So, yes, a show where you're interacting and everything you're selling is out of the buy it now, 100% legit. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Cheap Girl Fabrics. That's her main style of show. She's not running auctions. She's selling flash sales out of her buy it now. And she does very well with that. She's got it all down to a science. So if you want to watch how she does that, go. In fact, let's go raid Cheap Girl Fabrics so you can see how she does it. Ridiculous Goodness says one thing that helps me is knowing that most post offices have an open lobby after hours that you can drop off small packages under 13. Yeah, if your post office has one of those pull down metal things that you can put packages in, awesome. Most of the flat rate packages will fit in those as well. The post offices that just have the mail slot, typically that's just for letters. But they may have a smaller one that you can put smaller packages in. Yeah. All right. So let's go right into Cheap Girl Fabrics. You can see how she does some stuff. We'll say hi. She also does seller chats occasionally, and kind of gives some advice. And she's really good about explaining things too. She's got a teaching background like I do. I never taught public school. I was a corporate trainer for many years. And taught people how to use our computer systems and how to do their jobs. And so I have that kind of brain where I'm like, give people, specific what you're going to talk about and then make sure they understand it, so I'm very thorough with trying to explain things, hopefully. So I have that kind of mentality, and so does she. And it's helpful when you have someone that knows how to kind of bring information across because usually you're able to get what you need out of it. All right, so let's go raid, and you guys have a marvelous day. Bookmark upcoming shows if you find it helpful. Remember to take a screenshot of my show notes. It has my YouTube in there, and it has all those star bullets, which are the official places on Whatnot to go get help, which are the most important in my opinion, because you don't ask, the layman how to do something on a platform. You ask the official source first, and then you get additional details by the real users who use it day in and day out, who can give you the little tips and tricks and the more detailed information that sometimes the generic instructions don't go into. That makes sense. All right. So here we go. Rating over to Cheap Girl Fabrics. Have a wonderful day, everybody. See you soon. Bye for now.